the code for Galapagos, which is a plugin that's already built in. And what I have here in my model, you'll see as your base 01 for the Galapagos exercise, it pretty much has a footprint and an inner core. And the thing I want to do is I want to divide this in equal segments. However, I have an unusual footprint. So that's going to be where something like Galapagos is really valuable. Galapagos can be found here in utilities at the bottom where it says both Galapagos and also gene pool. And its fitness and landscape is related. And so these are pretty much your core for developing Galapagos scripts. And so I have my input of my outer of my footprint and my inner sort of core. And I'll divide these into equal segments. And so what I'm going to do is make the equal lines that are going to split them variables, which you can also call those gene pools. And so what I'm going to do for each one of those is after making sort of a surface that's going to be divided, where I can test the area, versus just me just doing it by hand, I'm just going to say, hey, look, I'm going to make a line. I have 2 points, point A, point B, for each one of those. And those are going to be plugged into my Galapagos to find out the equal areas. So what I'm going to do is, after, of course, making that boundary, I'm going to create both my point, construct point, and it's just simply construct point. And it's going to be where I'm going to have and this is actually about 40. I'm going to go -30. -30, and that's going to be times 12, so -360. And so I'm going to put one for the right side and one for the left side. Right? And so that's going to be my first ones. And the variability for this is actually going to be in the Y direction. I'm going to create a number slider, and that's going to be my gene pool variable for this one, right? And then I just need to create a line. It's very simple, start point and end point, right? And so I'm going to duplicate that, and it's going to be at a different Y. And I'm actually going to say, this is actually going to be my range right here. I actually want to have this at a much higher range. And I'll even just measure here so I can know exactly how much. So that's about maybe 80. So what I'm going to do is make this slider type. And I'll just set it up so that it's going to be to my range of -40 to 40. And we of course are gonna multiply that times 12, so it's more 480. 4 times 12, and -480. Right? So give me this full range. Right? And I'm going to duplicate this. So one, I'm starting these, my gene pool. One is at a higher level, one is a lower level. And I'm going to make one now going to be based on varying in this direction. And so we're going to go ahead, click this one here. And this one, as opposed to where I've connected to the Y coordinate, I'm now going to use my control to disconnect it from the Y coordinate, connect it to the X. And this is what I'm going to do now is connect the -40, which is -480. And this can be 480. And those are going to be where those are connected. And actually that just need to be negative here, negative here. Let's make sure that's to the right value. And this one, again, this is going to be the X coordinate that it's changing around in, right? And this is really its starting positions. Okay, so I have 3 plugins for my gene pool that I wanted to be moving around to find out the best area combinations. And because it's, again, it's unusual shape, that's sort of the calculation issue. Okay, so so I have these 3 lines and sort of my fitness set, and all I need to do now is use the intersect command so that I can now intersect my B-rep with the curve. And so that's going to be my main surface with these three curves. And I could either merge them or just all sort of just include them in, but I think merging is going to be a little plainer, so you know where the plugin is going. All right, and so just give it a little bit of space there. All right, and so these are going to go into here, and we can put our mouse over the curves, and we find out that it definitely is dividing it, and it's sort of saying how many sets is it coming up with. And so our division is going to be that sort of set of what's going on. And what we're going to do now is here even the setup panel, so we can test sort of the output of it. Okay, and so we're getting like all these sort of intersections here. Yeah, that's for just getting like that physical, how many maybe intersection. If you want to actually get that split area, we would have to split the B-rep. And so we'll go ahead and make sure we have the code sort of to get that split B-rep information. So that's going to be our next challenge. So we're just splitting that surface. So this one found the lines, and we're actually going to use this one more to find the actual in the surfaces. That's where we can get the areas from. Okay, and so we're going to put our curves here. So that gives us the fragments. That's going to be a little easier to get versus just those intersections. Though the intersections, obviously, there's some information that we actually get from that as well. But for our purposes, the surface split is going to be the proper function. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we can leave that there. Just plug it back into here. And so we have 6 regions. Now what we have here is the ability to get the area from these. As we plug this in, that area, final area value, or sets of areas, says, what is the difference between all these? And that's going to be different because they're not equal. And the idea, if I want them to be equal, what I would do is I would definitely be getting what are the bounds. This is how I can start to get ready to plug this into Galapagos, because I need to have that final information. Where I have a bounds, I now know when I deconstruct my domain, that's going to be telling me the largest area and the smallest area. And the idea of they're equal, we need that to be 0, as close to 0 as possible. And right now, if I go ahead and plug each one of these in, we see that if I subtract one from the other, it's obviously that this is not going to be 0 until it gets to a better location. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just really subtract the smaller number from the larger number, and that's going to tell me how big is my difference. And so that's going to be my number value that I'm going to be plugging in, and that's going to be my target. Okay, so this is my target. These are my input genes, and we're going to use Galapagos to solve these. And so we're now going to go ahead and from the main util bar, we're going to go in and click on Galapagos. Now, the fact is I can choose these as my gene pool, but I will say there's another method with the gene pool where I could actually make this the slider and then pretty much pull from this slider all my values. This is the gene pool where I can click edit and say if I had 2 values I wanted to test, and I could set the maximum minimum for both of those, also the decimal value. That can also plug in just like the slider. But since both the slider and this can plug in, it's going to be fine for me to use that for this purpose. Okay, so now that I have these set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, from my Galapagos plugin, hit my genomes to each one of these sliders. You see that it sets a little line, and I'm going to press Shift because I'm multi-selecting these genomes. And it works a little bit different than just a particular merge, so just be mindful of that. because it needs to really sort of see each one. Okay, so it's selected all these genomes or genes, and fitness is going to be based off this number. And this is the number that is like the difference. Like they're not in the place where they need to go right now. And as opposed to the normal way of plugging into here, you actually plug in from the Galapagos app, and it sort of shows where that's from. And when we have all those values, the next thing that we can do is just simply go in and double click on the Galapagos function, and now it goes into the Galapagos environment. So this is the Galapagos editor where we're going to really be pursuing the function for Galapagos. And the idea is it talks about different elements of fitness. So we're either trying to get a maximum or a minimum. Those are the options currently. And it only sort of deals with one. There are some plugins that can do it more than one goal, but we want to get the smallest one. And there's also some limits where we can say how long it will run, or we can just let it continuously run and then we stop it. We also have option for determining the population, sort of, how much do we want to really go into variation among this set. And you also have like some help for understanding a little bit more about evolutionary solvers. We're just going to do like simple for this minimum set. We're going to go into the solver area, and what we can do is as we plug those all in, we can just start the solver. As we start that solver, it's going to be now testing like some random locations for this. And so the idea is it starts off random and it starts to get averages. And you see right here, this is what the area is currently, the difference between the smallest and the biggest area. Right now, it's not that low because it's still trying to say, okay, where can I go? Can I go very high? Can I go very low? And so you'll see that it's different areas. And so what I can do is I can start to limit like the top 50% of the genomes or the top 25%. And you see it's starting to figure out what location is going to be really good for getting an equal value, because obviously it's obviously pretty big, right? And it's trying to balance all of those genomes at the same time, and that's sort of the language it uses for sort of testing that variable. And so as you can see, it's getting down pretty low, and since I haven't set like a particular time, it can actually continue to sort of continue that value and just sort of play around with where can it go for lower and lower and lower, so it can get that even division. Okay, so I'm just letting this run. You can let this run for a little bit to see sort of how low it can go, because the opposite could get to 0 if it is taking long enough. So right now, of course, it's gotten as low as 60, and again, that's some of the way that I've divided it and had it start. So obviously, if some of the things are not really possible, it will sort of let you know. That's going to be one of the tests that you can do. But if I was to sort of say that I'm fine with looking at sort of the top values now, and we'll just stop it just for sake of time, where I stopped solver and said, okay, that's the closest it can get me. If I click on any one of these, which is our output, we can just click on any one of them, and we can just say reinstate. And what it will do, it will show the values at a location. All right, and if I sort of go maybe the top 10 or something, I can do the same thing. And it's been relocating and moving up a little bit to get a closer value to the perfect one, right? And so that's sort of where it is, and sort of how it's organized. That's going to be now sort of set in here. I can of course record these here and copy these out, sort of. But also, if you look into the window again, you can still see in the in the window for Grasshopper all the values that sort of got the most even results already, right? Because that the importance for that is obviously when you press OK, you actually you lost that simulation. But it was really good at sort of finding out where you can locate that. Okay, so that was just one ways to get a Galapagos solving. And again, it's trying to get as close as possible with the constraints that you give it. And one way to, of course, think about it is you can use different types of genomes. You can change the location of the core, say where could the core be to be the best for all the equal areas. And so that's one of the benefits of what you can do with the Galapagos set for this type of situation. And we're just going to go ahead and just save this as this base Galapagos area. And after you finish any one of these, obviously when it has a result, you can just simply go and bake your results. And if you've gotten down, to a certain amount of for that, you can always just go to a new document so you can just see what you have here. And so this was like really close to getting like equal areas. And so the idea is maybe we could change something in the design so it could be a little more easy to get that equal area. Maybe we can reduce the size of the core, etc., etc. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and save this. And I do want to show like another variation from this, because for this particular one, I had it as having just for the same Y. If we wanted to say maybe we can rotate these walls, maybe we have a little angle, I could always come back and actually do a separate genome for each one of the points. So now if we wouldn't limit it in that way, and I come here, do the same thing. And what I have to do again is I do have to now connect these new genomes. I'm going to press Shift, connect here, right? And so again, so everywhere I've just added a new input. So now we have made it a little more complex. And we can do that again. This is just to see if we can get a little more closer. We're again minimizing it. And we're going to go ahead and just start that solver again. And so just going through those functions. And really, you can look around. The Rhino might be going a little bit slower. But because we have that little variable of, it can now sort of rotate a little bit. It can, play around a little more and get it a little bit closer. So I've increased the freedom in how my gene pool can variate, and it's getting much lower values in terms of saying, okay, now we're going to get that equal area. And so that's one way you can start to refine a script like this. Again, you can change. You have multiple types of genomes, but you have one particular goal. And so that's going to be, that will be a constant. And you see this is getting a really, really, really close to equal areas. And obviously going down, it's just, a matter of time. How long are we going to let it go down? I'm going to actually let it go down to something like 1,000 square inches, really. And so that will just take a little bit longer. But again, that's going to be the basis for understanding a type of script like this in Galapagos. What we're going to do next is we're going to look at more of a shortest pass solution, which is another type of way of using Galapagos. We're going to actually use the gene pools instead of this particular set. So, and again, we're very close here, and this is just a valuable tool for sort of exploring different ways of configuring data by evolutionary computing. And now we're almost at 1,000, and I think we'll be there very soon. And it's just really testing every combination. And we just go to that top 25%. You see we've already gotten there. And we just go ahead and stop that. And we have all the values that we need in here. And so the benefit, of course, of using the gene pool is that we can just save a particular gene pool and just use a particular gene pool for a particular set of values.